me share with you the meaning of that, because I know it sounds kind of foreign. So let me share it with you. It says Kadada wajud habibi lehafi wa tisaha, which means the face, the Sheikh says, the face of the beloved appeared and shone in the early dawn. His light pervaded my heart, so I prostrated myself in awe. And he said to me, rise and ask of me, and you will have whatever you desire. One of the meanings of this, that the face of the beloved appeared and shone in the early dawn. As we know, the darkest hour is right before the dawn. And the Sheikh is saying here that, as you know, that when you look at someone's face, in that person's face is contained the meaning of that person. So he's saying, one of the meanings that he's referring here is that when he woke up from that night, from the night of darkness, or the night, he's referring to illusion, the night of just seeing things by their outward form, he woke up like the sun coming out, and he saw the meaning of everything around him. He saw the face of God everywhere he looked. He indicates here that everywhere that we look is meaning. That things around us are not just the outward things that they appear to be. They all contain meaning. Every one of us can relate to this, that when we've looked at the mountains, when we looked at the stars, when we looked at the trees, we can see they contain the beauty and majesty and the hand of a creator behind them. You can see that they have in them a plan and a pattern. It is that kind of extraction that you take from your daily experience that you begin to understand the meaning of what this incredible creation is around us. He says, his light pervaded my heart, so I prostrated myself in awe. When he witnesses these things around him, there's a point where he has to take a leap from the rational, from the intellect. He is overwhelmed because when everything has meaning, and everything comes to you, that kind of meaning can only be understood by the heart, not with just the intellect. There is a point where the intellect can see and comprehend and understand, but then the heart has another kind of perception. And when that perception opens up in us, everything else takes a second seat. And this is what the Sheikh is discussing here. He prostrated himself. He put his face on the ground. His most precious, our most precious thing that we value is our face, our eyes, our sensual experience. He had to prostrate that in order for this higher experience to occur within him. And then he goes on to say, he said to me, which means he's speaking about this, he's speaking about God, this inner voice that all of us can have access to. He says, he said to me, rise and ask of me, and you will have whatever you desire. After all of us, when this experience happened to this Sheikh, and which we all can have this access to, you have to come up out of that prostration. Whenever this happens to, whether it happens to prophets or teachers of all the traditions, once they have this gift from God, they return to the world and they bring that message to people. This is all that's one of the things that the Sheikh is saying here. He says, I reply to you that you are enough for me. Away from you, I cannot live. He is recognizing, the Sheikh here, that everything comes from that one source, from that one reality. We call it Allah. We call it Allah because this was the name that was revealed by the reality itself for us to address the reality with. But it's that one reality, God, and when the Shaykh realized that everything comes from him, that he realized he cannot live without it. That his existence, that our existence without that is nothing. There's nothingness. He said, again, you have to remember, this is a conversation going on inside the heart of this Shaykh. He said, my slave, there is good news for you, so enjoy the vision. I mean, once you realize that everything comes from one source, and that your life and your provisions and all the gifts and everything that come to you come from that one source, how can that be other than good news? If we had to control this universe and this world and all the events that have happened in our lives, we couldn't do it. We can't even control any of the simplest of bodily functions that are going on inside of us. He says, you are a treasure to my slaves and you are a dhikr to mankind. Because what he represents, what now that he reached this potential within him, that now what he represents is the treasure for all of us. Meaning that once you, all of us, any of us, reach that inner treasure, reach that reason for why we're here in this world, then you have found the treasure of existence. And whomever you meet after that, how can they not taste and benefit from that treasure which emanates from you? And he says, every good and every beauty in man has spread from me. And what he's talking about is as God is speaking, and is saying that everything has come from that one effulgent source. The attributes of my essence are hidden, and they were manifested in the existence traces. Here, he's talking about that Allah, or God, in his essence, cannot be understood it's an essence, but we can understand God by seeing the attributes, by seeing Allah's or God's names, by seeing his actions in the creation. We recognize, for instance, if how we recognize each other. When you see a friend of yours behaving in a good way to you, then you recognize the person's goodness. If he acts in a bad way to you, you recognize that he's acting badly, and you know something about that person. In the same way, the reality manifests this creation in names and in events and in meanings for you to see that they all indicate him.